Hey everybody, Dave Therian here. Glad to be with you live again. Been away. We're back live. And happy to be here on the radio. We also have a new streaming platform, New Hope Radio.live. And you can go there to pick up Facebook and YouTube as well. Another feature we're adding today. We've got a text line open. Matter of fact, I'll give you the number pronto. Call it up here. If you have a comment or a question, and we'll share that on the air, 339-230-0335. You can write that down, 339-230-0335. And we'll put it up every once in a while on our screen here on YouTube and Facebook. Got a comment, got a question? You're smart people out there. I want to share what you know. And if you have a question, we'll answer it the best we can as well. Okay, today we're going to begin a brand new series. And I like this series because it's intended to help us to grow, to be godly in our Christian lives. That's why we do it, right? It's not why we go to church and listen to Christian programs and do those things, because we want to be, what? Godly. We want to represent the Lord in our life. That's what we do. So we tune in every day and do the best we can. Stay in the scriptures, we read the Bible and do all that we can so we can be godly. So I call the series LifeChanging Principles. That's what it is. And today, we're going to start off with kind of a tough one. What Jesus said about judging. Because, judging can be our downfall. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't judge, but we're going to see the practical aspect of judging. What's the godly way of judging? Okay? That'll be our topic today here on New Hope Radio. And once again, I want to give you that number if you have a question or a comment, or you want to share an experience that you've had, with judging. Maybe it worked out bad. That's okay. We can talk about it. 339-230-0335. Okay? 339-230-0335. Okay. Let's talk about life-changing principles so we can grow and become godly in our lives. Now, we're going to be in chapter 7 in the Gospel of Matthew. And, I love chapter 7 because it really covers many aspects of daily living. And in verse 1, Jesus said, "Do not judge." Oh, right off the bat. He's kind of nailing it right where it is. Do not judge. Why? So that you will not be judged. Oh, I get it. And this is why also. For in the way that you do judge, you will be judged. Oh, in other words, you reap what you sow. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. So think about that. If you judge gracefully, you'll be judged gracefully. I like that. But if you judge harshly, you're going to be judged harshly as well. So Jesus went on in verse 3, "Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log?" Wow, how do you miss that? That is in your own eye. Get a log in your eye? How do you miss that? Oh, we do. How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," and behold, the log is in your own eye? And Jesus, now he's really building a following. You hypocrites. Hey, Jesus doesn't hold it back. You know why? Because what he says is true. And we need it. We need this message. He said, "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly so you can take the speck out of your brother's eye." Again, strong words about judging, aren't they? Jesus doesn't say, don't do it, but rather he teaches us how to do it. That's the difference. So let's go back to verse 1. Do not judge, so you'll not be judged. Now the word judge is the word krino, and it means to condemn someone. The habit of sharp, unjust criticism. The word actually means to separate, or to discriminate, or distinguish. Here, Jesus is speaking not about the act of judging, which is important, but even more than that. He's speaking about the spirit of judging. And you know, that's the biggest part of the Christian life, I believe. The spirit of what we do. That's why when Jesus said, listen, you might say you never committed adultery, but if you lusted in your heart, that's the spirit of adultery. Okay? You might never have stolen, but if you envied in your heart, that's the spirit of stealing. You see? So it's not just like, the hard, cold facts of what we do, but it's the mindset that's going on inside of us. The spirit of judging is very important, because when we understand judging, it spares us from the error of misjudgment. You don't want to do that. We've done it, I've done it, you've done it, we've done it. But you know what? It always brings us pain, doesn't it? Jesus is telling these things to help us to avoid as much pain as possible. Now, the rabbis taught that there were 6 great works which brought a person credit in this world and profit in the world to come. And here they are. Number 1, study. Number 2, visiting the sick. Number 3, hospitality. Number 4, devotion in prayer. Number 5, education of children in the law. And number 6, thinking the best of other people. I mean, even the ancient rabbis taught that. Think the best. When you look at people, try to think the best of them. Perhaps this misjudgment of people is one of our most grievous sins. Misjudgment is the basis of separation, right? Separation of people, separation of classes, separation of races, separation of nations. A lot of it is because of misjudgment. Separation in marriage. Why? Misjudgment. Separation of friendships. We basically reap what we sow. That's what Jesus is saying. He said, and the way you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. It's kind of like, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others. Right? God, forgive me the same way I forgive others. God, judge me the same way I judge others. That's what we're saying. He that is severe against others will excite their severity against him. Right? It'll all come back. I think Solomon made a helpful observation about our human dealings. And it's in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. He said, cast your bread on the surface of the waters, for you will find it after many days. Now, this was originally spoken in reference to giving to the poor. You give to the poor, and good will come back to you. But I use it in other applications as well. It's kind of like a reap what you sow principle. You know what? If you sow love, you'll reap love. If you sow friendship, you'll reap friendship. If you sow help to others, you'll reap help. You'll get the help that you need. Okay? So now we're going to make this application to viewing other people. Okay? And basically, this is what Jesus is really talking about. How we view other people. The way you view others, it'll come back on you the very same way. Now, come on. Don't you think we all want to be viewed in a positive light? Yeah, I know I do. So we will need to view people in a positive light in order to get that in return. See how simple? See how basic? Why do people struggle with the Christian life? You don't have to. Read and obey. That's it. Read the scriptures. Abide in them. Things will work out for you. So, in verse 3, Jesus talks about the preparation of introspection. In other words, preparing yourself first. He said, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye? A little tiny, tiny splinter. But you don't notice the log that's in your own eye. A speck, right? A twig. A little straw. The King James Version calls it a mote or a splinter. But he says the log that's in our eye, that's like a beam, a timber. You get the difference between a little piece of straw that easily overlook our own faults than we do the faults of others. We can, and we do. That's why Jesus taught this message. He taught this message because he wants us to understand that we have a sin nature. Oh yeah. And that sin nature is going to lead us down the wrong path. So we need to be aware. And we need some introspection. And kind of look at ourselves first before we look at others. Now that's not bad. A prideful person will have a hard time with that. But that's not you. Because you are humble, because you want to learn the things of God. So Jesus said in verse 4, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, and yet look at the log that's in your own eye? How can you do that? Picture this. Someone trying to take a little dust particle out of your eye when their eye is filled with dirt. Would you want them to do that? Would you want someone to take a little thing out of your eye, but their eyes, they're like covered in mud? Well, no, that's okay. I'll do it. I don't want you to touch me. Right? You want them to kind of wash out their own eyes first before they help you with your problem. That's why Jesus called them a hypocrite. He said first, and I'll explain what a hypocrite means in the days of Jesus. He said first, take the log out of your own eye. And then you'll see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. In other words, come on, wash your eyes first. A hypocrite is the word hypocrites. And it really, back in the first century, it was an actor. An actor is an assumed character. An actor would play the role of a person that they were not. Right? I don't know why we give so much credibility to actors today. They live in a world of make-believe, don't they? And yet we idolize them, and we watch them get awards and rewards and trophies, and we watch them strut themselves around, and it's like they live in a world of make-believe. That's all. They work hard. Oh yeah, I'm not saying they don't. I'm sure it's very rigid to be an actor, TVs, movies, whatever. They work hard, not lazy. But I mean, we idolize people that are actors. Now, back in the Greek days of the Greek drama, an actor would get on the stage and they would have a mask, a stick with a face on either, with a mask, but each side would be a different face. One might be happy, one might be sad. So if they were playing the part of a happy person, they put it up in front of them and show the audience the happy part. And then if they got sad, they'd flip it around and they'd show them the sad part. Okay? That's called a hypocrites, a hypocrite. They were playing a role that they were really not. So Jesus is saying, oh, here it comes. If you say you're a follower of Christ and you judge people harshly, you're playing the role of a person that you are really not. Either you're not really a follower of Christ because your judgment is giving you away. These are the things we have to watch out for. That's why Paul said, examine yourself daily to see if you're operating in the faith. Yeah, we have to do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I put on many masks in my day. Still do at times. Not me. Playing the role of other people. Yeah, a judge, a jerk, someone, arrogant, prideful. Oh, yeah, I got my mask, that's for sure. So what we have to do is, try to take the log out of our own eye first and work on that. The life-changing principle that Jesus is teaching is the spirit of judging. That's what we have to be on our guard against, the spirit. Because you see, what we do begins with the spirit. It begins as a thought, as a motivation. Then it becomes an action. So whatever spirit drives us, that is what we will be driven to. Okay? Whatever spirit drives you, that's what you'll be driven to. For instance, if you have the spirit of stealing, you're going to steal. If you have the spirit of drunkenness, you're going to go out and drink until you're drunk. If you have a spirit of lying, well, then it's going to drive you to lie. Same thing with the spirit of judging. It's going to drive you to be a judge, a judgmental person. That's what it's going to do. So Jesus is warning us, listen, let's avoid some of this hardship by not giving people severe judgments, but being graceful in our judgments. And make sure that we examine ourselves first. Let me give you that number again. If you want to share a question or a comment, I know this is new, so it might be slow. 339-230-0335. Text or comment or question to 339-230-0335. And by the way, this will become a podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast later and you're still texting in, we'll get around to that. Okay? We'll answer that question anyway. So even though we're not live on the podcast, we'll answer it for you. And we'll do the best we can with that. All right? So let's, I want to give you some helpful hints to avoid the spirit of judging. Okay? What are some things we can do? Number one, we never know the whole facts or the whole person. In other words, everybody has a backstory. And their backstory or their history kind of determines how they act today. No one knows the strength of another person's temptation. Your strength might be someone else's weakness, and someone else's strength might be your weakness. You see, we all have areas of strength, and we all have areas of weakness. We all do. I don't think we're, none of us are really superior to any others. None. We're all fall short of the glory of God, right? So, everybody has a background that has affected them. Everybody has an upbringing that has shaped them. Everybody has hurts. And they wear those wounds today. So, all of these things play a large role in where a person is. Because we all have different backgrounds, and we all have different experiences and different upbringings and different hurts, it makes us all different from one another. There's a mineral that's found off the coast of Labrador, near Canada. And this mineral, it's a rather dull, gray, and a bit greasy. And it's very unattractive at first sight. But when it is polished, it is the most beautiful. And the point is, you have to know the whole stone. See, if you only knew the ugly part of the stone, you'd think, that's got no value. You'd walk right over it. But when you know the whole stone, you say, I'm going to take that home. I'm going to polish it. Oh, I'm going to shine it up. Because you know the stone. And you take it home and you shine it up. And it's beautiful. And you put it in your little hutch, your little case, or on a shelf. And people come over and say, what a beautiful stone. Where'd you get that? Oh, I got it somewhere. I got it off the coast of Labrador near Canada. Oh, yeah. A lot of people walked by it. They didn't think it was anything. They judged it harshly by what they saw. But I know differently. I know all about that stone. I know it's very valuable. And you know what? I think, and I believe, all people are valuable to God. Because I heard somewhere that Jesus died for the sins of the world. He didn't just die for some. He didn't just die for the good people. He died for all people. That makes all people valuable. See, in the eyes of God, we all look the same. But when we look at each other, we don't look the same. Oh, we judge and criticize, but God sees us all the same. And He let His Son come down and shed His blood for each and every one of us. So we all have, yes, value to God. We have to remember that value when we judge people. I mean, have you ever found it easy to judge a stranger? You don't know them, but you can judge them, maybe usually by the way they look. Maybe they don't fit your idea of what a good citizen looks like. Maybe they got, nowadays it's like, phew, I think people have an identity crisis. We got a lot of body piercings going on and weird hairstyles, and people don't know what gender they are. They're switching back and forth. It's like, man. But it's so easy to judge, isn't it? It's so easy when we don't know their backstory, their upbringing, their hurts, their lostness. That's what it is. Secondly, I want us to take home, it's almost impossible for any person to be strictly impartial in their judgment. Right? We can't, because we all have our own prejudices. Oftentimes, the ancient Greeks would hold a court case of extreme importance in the dark, so the jury wouldn't be influenced by anything but the facts. They'd have to listen, but they couldn't look at the people and make a decision based on what they saw. It had to be on the facts alone. Just the facts, ma'am. As humans, we are all influenced by personal prejudice, or maybe what we've heard about someone, by friends. Even the media today is on this campaign to influence people. There was a time when the media brought the news. Now it seeks to bring the influence. Oh, these are dangerous times we're living in. They certainly are. That's why we need to be wise as serpents and meek as doves. We certainly do. So all these things can contribute to a person judging a person harshly. And then thirdly, only God himself is impartial. Everybody else is partial. God is impartial. So that makes him the greatest judge of all. And Jesus said himself in Matthew chapter 7, and it doesn't mean we're blind to the faults of others, but we are fruit inspectors of what we hear. Yes, we are to judge, but we have to do it righteously. And when Jesus was talking about false teachers, he said, you'll know them by their fruits. He said, look at their life. He said, don't emulate what they do, though their teachings might be okay, but don't emulate what they do. The Apostle Paul, when he wrote to the Corinthians, he said, I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people. That means there is a judgment that we pass on people, but we're not condemning them. You're not condemning the immoral person. What you're doing is you're making a judgment to say, I'm not going to get around them. I'm not cursing them. I'm not condemning them to hell. I'm just separating myself from a negative influence. Paul said to another group, you are our letter, written in our hearts, known and read by all men. So there is an expectancy that people will look at our lives, even the lives of the Christians, and they will read our lives and they will determine, what they think about God. So again, it's not so much the act of judging, but living in the spirit that we have to be on our guard for. The spirit of condemnation. We need to be on our guard against that. You might see someone in their lifestyle, you totally disagree with them. You totally disagree with what they do with themselves, how they look, what their values are. But that doesn't mean you have the right to condemn them. Okay? You can be a fruit inspector, and you can, don't run with them, right? Separate yourself. But you've got to leave the judging to God. Only God is worthy of casting impartial, righteous judgments on people. So you see what that does? It helps us to preserve love for one another. It does. And the church needs this message, because I'll tell you what, the church is like, forget it. Church is in trouble. Church against church, denomination against denomination. I mean, the world looks at the church and says, you guys can't even agree on what God is like, and you expect us to come along. That's why God said, judgment begins in the house of the Lord. Oh yeah. It's going to start right here in God's house. So better judge yourself before you judge someone else. Okay? That's really important. That's our message today. Judge yourself before you judge someone else. We're going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to see what Jesus said about sharing our faith. Is that important? I think it might be pretty important. Because isn't that the basis of folks finding hope and finding forgiveness and eternal life in heaven with Christ? So it's really important that we share our faith and we do it properly and righteously. And before you share it, you know what? You have to know it. You have to know what you're talking about. So learn, and then you can share. Hey, thank you for coming along today. Listen, you can go to newhopecc.tv. You can find the Hope Club podcast. You can find the podcast also iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. You can just type in Google, the Hope Club podcast. We'll be there for you. Get all of our messages. I think they're great for drive time to and from work, right? You got a half-hour drive to work? Great. Got a half-hour drive home? Great. Or maybe at lunchtime you want to go sit and just listen. Build up your spirit. Do that. Build up your spirit. Fill your heart with the Word of God. And judging will not be one of your maladies. I guarantee it. It will not be a malady. Thank you for coming along. Listen, go to newhoperadio.live and join the Hope Club. You'll find out all the information that you need to be in that great club. newhoperadio.live. Thanks for coming along today. I'll see you next time for more of New Hope Radio.
Hey, that's your body.